Rain, a tribute to the Beatles, currently on tour and coming to Chicago May 17th and 18th. We Paul here to chat about his role as Paul McCartney in the show. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
This show has all the hits. Talk a little bit. I mean, if someone's ever heard of it or never seen it, tell us a little bit about the experience of the show.
Boy, I mean, it's really one of a kind. Not only is it just a delve into that era of pop culture and music, but it's a multimedia experience as well. So we've kind of bridged the 21st century in with the 60s. So it's really special. I like to say it's almost like the anthology performed live.
What I love too is that this has become a family experience because you're part of the show and your dad was also part of the show and still is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He's the producer and musical director of the show, but he was the Paul McCartney surrogate prior to me.
Tell me a little bit about growing up, the Beatles' influence on your life and on your family, and obviously, that connection with your dad.
Well, I just grew up immersed in that music, but for the longest time, I didn't really know that it was the Beatles. I always thought it was Rain. I thought it was my uncles and everything. So that music I always attributed to Rain, attribute to the Beatles. It wasn't until I was becoming a young adult or teenager really that I started to pay attention to the Beatles catalog.
Because I know, like, for me, this is the music of my parents' generation. And, when we were around the house, whether we were having a barbecue, just hanging out, a party, like the Beatles were always on. And that's my connection to my family. But so many people, especially young kids who are getting into music, learning to play their first couple of songs, it's always Beatles songs or the way they connect with different generations. And I just love that, like, no matter it's not of a certain era. Yes, they are from a certain era, but no matter who you are, like you love this music.
Absolutely, they're timeless, and I like to think of them as the modern classical. But I always like to say, in every generation, at every age, you don't find the Beatles find you. So, at some point in your life, you remember when you had that aha moment when the Beatles just made sense and they called out to you and spoke their message of peace and love and what they mean to the counterculture into your life. And it's so impactful that I don't think it'll ever go away.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time was that usually it was like my parents playing that music, and I remember the first time that I had my car and I'm driving, and I'm the one who put it on because I wanted to listen to it, and I knew that moment, like when the Beatles
Yeah,
like changed me.
exactly. And you're never quite the same after that happens.
You were never quite the same. You also got to play in London on the same stage that Paul McCartney played on. Talk a little bit about that experience.
That was really special. Not only, just being in that country and seeing where it all kind of came from and started, being up in Liverpool and seeing Penny Lane and being at the Palladium where they were and seeing Carnaby and all that kind of stuff. It really kind of made them made them human, you know. It made it like, okay, they're not just this big four-headed monster of a legend. They're just guys and they were just very special guys, very gifted. But walking the streets, it was so Beatle, everything about it was just so Beatle. So you never really forget that experience.
And big shoes to fill to play Paul McCartney on stage. Tell me a little bit about that journey that you go through every night to be able to do these performances.
Yeah, well, they're size nine. It's not too big, but but yeah, it's really a labor of love. I mean, it comes from a place. I know I could speak for the other surrogates, the other cast members, that it just we love them so much, and we love their music and what they mean to the world so much that it may seem difficult to somebody. To us, it's a constant, strive to be better and sound more like them and learn something new from them. So it's a joy to be able to do it.
Let's talk a little bit about the moment, as the show's about to start, and you get to look out in the audience, and the lights come up, and you see people in their. I'm assuming people are wearing their Beatles shirts, their Paul McCartney shirts, they're dressed in
Absolutely.
whatever era that they love. Like that
Yeah.
moment that the lights come on, and you feel that energy.
It's just a collective, it's such a magical thing. All of us together celebrating something that we all feel so strongly about. And yeah, I love the look on people's face. First of all, it's, we recreate the Ed Sullivan set in the studio, and their first, wide-eyed look at, okay, which guy looks the most like their Beatle, and then at the same time they're taking in the sound that, of the early Beatles hits that were playing. So it's this weird kind of first date, first impression, 2 minutes that we have with each other where we're both kind of nervous but excited.
I mean, talk a little bit about the fans that are coming there, and maybe what you see as they're leaving, because obviously this is something that means so much to so many people. And, we watch those clips, either some generations, watch them live as they were happening. Other people may have watched
Yeah.
them online or documentaries, but these four people have such a strong connection to so many. I mean, when you leave the stage and maybe at the stage door, or if you're talking to someone about the show, I mean, talk a little bit about, what they have to say, because I'm sure everyone has, a fun story.
It's incredible. I mean, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is that there's upwards of four generations of Beatle fan out there. Everybody from, like you said, that experienced the Beatles when they were happening, to I call them the YouTube generation, the generation of kids even younger than me that have just been in love with the Beatles and watched them on YouTube or Disney Plus or whatever it may be, to experience it. And they grow with us throughout the night. It goes from that same excitement from, kind of the handshake, the first impression in the United States on the Ed Sullivan Show, through the breakup. So when people leave, they're like, man, I feel like I just lived their entire career, or that entire decade with you within, 2 hours. So people all the time ask me, like, how do you not only change the way you appear, but change the way you act, change the way you sing, all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of study, and that comes from just wanting to be around the Beatles and wanting to see any bit of footage that I can see of them, because I love them.
Oh, me too. And especially, in Chicagoland, I think the two big stories that we talk about is at Sox Park when they came here to play, and just seeing the price of tickets. I mean, now you're lucky to get a $50 ticket,
Right,
or that's on
right.
the cheap end, but just how much. And then after the show, they went to a place called Margie's Candies, which was an ice cream shop here. And you would think big band, or they're out at a hotel bar or whatever, like they went out for ice cream. And I know they used to have autographed memorabilia from their stop there, and I think it's still in the location. But that's a
Really.
stop for fans who are coming to Chicago to go ahead and check that out. It's a big piece of Beatles history in our Chicago area.
I know I'm definitely going. I'm gonna go look for it. Please send me the info on that.
I definitely will. And as far as like a favorite song or a favorite era of yours personally, like not on stage, but when you are, or does it change depending on your mood?
It always does. Yeah, I like to say, it depends on the month, the week, the day, the hour, the minute, the second. Because they wrote music for every mood, every feeling, every adventure in your life. So there's over 200 songs to choose from, and how many albums. So it really just depends. But lately I've really, really, really been enjoying, and I feel like I always have, the Rubber Soul and Revolver era. Those back to back, like George Harrison had said, they could have been a two album release, side one and side two, or, part one, part two. So I just love that era of their music, when they were really hot on the Motown sound, and they were still working together so closely as a group.
And then, I don't know if I'll put this in there or not, but I heard you just have a little bit of your British accent come out when you were saying the names of the albums. Does that
Yeah.
happen to you
It
quite
slips
often?
a little bit. Yeah, it's the hour of the day when I'm starting to prep to go on. So, it starts to bubble up.
It starts to promo. But Paul, thank you so much for your time today. Rain, a tribute to the Beatles, coming to the CIBC Theater May 17th and 18th. BroadwayChicago.com for those tickets. Check it out, and we cannot wait for you to be in our city.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's been a long time since we've been in Chicago. I mean, I miss the city.
It's going to be wonderful, and it's warm. That's the most important part. Is that it's
Oh,
nice. It's summertime. Yeah.
yes. Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Of course.